Anyway, he sends me a text and I'm in class and he's like, "Hey, you want to be Trump?" And I'm like, "No, I'm busy." I'm like, "Of course, but where do I go?" So he said, "I'll meet you in an hour at this part of the campus." So I get over to him and he says to me, "What do you want to do with your life, kid? Like, what's your?" And I was just so freaking nervous. I'm
Well,
like,
I was
"It's
like,
Donald
I
Trump,"
bet it felt like surreal. Like, wait, is this actually happening right now?
these pharmaceutical companies that have just literally profited off regular people being stuck on their meds, and it's not making them better; it's making them dependent. And I think, again, our job is to take the power away from these special interest people who can run this country for so
Yeah.
long and bring it back to the people.
I mean, obviously it's criminal. There's no, like, at that point, there's no conversation about what they're doing is right or wrong because they're destroying public property. Thank you for being here today, Erik. Yes, for old time's sake, we did, what was it? The Gethsemane Giants, right?
The Giants, that's right.
How?
We did our own Facing the Giants.
Yeah.
Great.
So I never played the official game. Did they ever play with other churches or groups or anyone?
No,
or just amongst
it was
ourselves?
mostly like scrimmages against our own. We just kind of divide up the people who were there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's what I thought. Yeah, we had this really cool,
But we went all out. You remember we were diving and
Yes.
trying to rob home runs and banging my head off the fence.
It was so much fun. And you did it. You organized that completely, right? I thought so.
Oh, I had to.
Yeah, it had to be done.
That was my ministry.
Someone had to do it. So you stepped up and you did it. Yeah, so I'm so glad that this was the coolest kind of setup for me because I just reached out. I was like, "Oh, I should talk to Erik." Erik knows so much about a lot of the stuff I'm interested in talking about. And not only were you super interested, okay, you're like, "How about tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Great." It was just worked out so smoothly. I love that. I was like, "Oh, this is perfect." I was like, no hassle on my end. It worked smoothly. So I'm excited about it. So yeah, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, I've known you. We went to the same church for a while. That's how we met. I guess maybe 10 or 15 years ago, right?
A while ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was what, 2011 or 12 or
Yeah,
something? 2011.
I think it was 2011. Yeah. So that would have been, 14 years ago now, coming on 15. So, yeah, I'd love to, I know, your history, but for everyone watching, share a little bit about, just I know your immigration kind of story, kind of what brought you to where you are today. That just tell us whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's been a crazy roller coaster that only God could have written that script because it's just insane how it's gone. So, grew up in Ireland, came through 18 years of legal immigration. It was a crazy journey just getting sworn in 2016. I got finally sworn in. I've always loved my adopted country. I love this country with all my heart. I really believe in empowering others. I think a lot of people out there don't have a voice, and I don't care about social status or who your father was and all this stuff. I care about who you are. I think a lot of people don't realize it's not about what it's where your heart is, and that's always been my thing. So I do work in political world with Businesses for Liberty. I've been an activist for years. Yeah. And I just love baseball. Of course, that's why I got my baseball bat right here. Because to me, this brings people together from all over the world. So I love the World Baseball Classic. Yeah. But it's, I think I've always had an underdog story, Mary. I was 98% deaf. I had eczema all over my body. I couldn't play sports. All the Irish doctors counted me out. And, God had different plans. And I've been fighting ever since.
That's amazing.
That's a quick little nutshell.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me. I've experienced this a lot, and obviously you've had it firsthand, is so many first generation immigrants seem a lot more appreciative in a way of the US, the American culture and the liberties. Maybe it's just because what their families went through or what they personally went through. Because even a lot of my Latino friends, my husband, he got sworn in what was it, 2020, 2019? It was during COVID, because remember you had to do one by yourself. Ooh. Yeah, he couldn't. Yeah. They let him get sworn in person, but no one could be there. They were like, you can wait a few years, and he was like, no, I don't want to wait. I want this done now.
Oh, yeah. I'd be the same way.
Yeah. So, but I feel like there's a different appreciation or understanding of what we have in America, and why it's worth preserving in a lot of ways. How have you experienced that personally?
Oh, well, you know, Ireland, of course, I'll always be proud to be from Ireland. But
Yeah.
I do say at the same time, there's a big thing in Europe called social class distinction. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what your skill set is. Everyone judges you based on what town you came from and your last name and all
Mm,
these things. They have nothing to do really with you and what
yeah.
you've done, but you're kind of put in. It's almost like a social caste
That's what I say.
system,
It sounds
you
like a
know?
social.
Right. So in America, I mean, you remember I worked for Rick Perry back in the day, and Rick Perry came from nothing in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and
Okay.
ran for president. And to me, only in America could that happen. So I would say, not that Ireland's a third world country. I'm not saying that by any means, but what I am saying is that there's a difference.
Yeah.
And I love that in America, you're judged based on your merit and what you do, and not your father and your
Yeah.
grandfather and all that stuff. So that's what I love.
Yeah, I don't know if that's cultural or what it is because that is very much true. I would say for the most part it's a very accepted idea that like you are not who your family is. You can make your own place, and that I think is a very American thing, honestly.
Hmm.
Because even the countries like I would say even in the Dominican, right? Giuseppe is kind of like, "Oh, well your family's this is your family." And it's like, "Well, maybe I'm not my family." So, yeah, I do I guess I never, though, have really put much thought into that maybe that's a worldwide thing, that the
Yeah.
social portion. What kind of government does Ireland have? Like, what is they're not
So we don't have like the two-party system. We have a bunch of parties: the Fianna Gael
okay.
party, Fianna Fáil party, Green Party, Workers Party. We've got a bunch of parties. So it's not the what do you call it here? We've got the two-system
Yeah.
party, Republican, Democrat. Really, independent's not really
No,
not
that's
really a
it's
factor.
there, but
So
not
yeah,
it doesn't mean anything.
right.
Um, awesome. And then tell me a little bit about the Businesses for Liberty. How did you get into that, and what is it actually?
Well, the easiest way to put it is there are so many business owners out there that are mom and pop businesses, right?
Yeah.
That family owned, veteran owned, like all these great people. They're not corporations. And I really believe we need to put our money with them.
Yeah.
We need to be shopping with those coffee shops and those businesses. Now, obviously, they also agree with me politically and what I believe in. And that's why I like their America First, their Second Amendment people, or all these different issues. But to me, it's even more than the politics. It's about helping regular people who we lost too many businesses in COVID,
Yeah.
and we need to bring those businesses back. I don't know about you, but when I go into these small businesses, like I love they want to know your name. They
Yeah.
want to know how your day's going.
Or
They
tell
actually
you like
like
where
build
this
a
product
relation.
came from.
Right. Yeah. So I thought after COVID and after the election in 2020, how can I productively fight back? And I thought, well, I'm used to promoting candidates for president. Why not support people who are in business who desperately need more eyeballs
Yeah.
on their storefront or their home business?
So was it COVID a big decision maker in that, like, you having that passion to help support the businesses? Was it did you have that kind of idea before COVID, or was it really COVID that did that for you?
That's a really good question. I think it was a combination
Mm,
of COVID, but then also the whole, we'll talk about that later, the monuments, and then the election. And again, just feeling, I think I felt for a lot of people that they didn't have a voice. Again, remember about empowering people, like
yeah.
they didn't have a voice speaking for them. And just being totally transparent, I felt like chambers of commerce weren't doing nearly enough. I
Yeah.
felt like a lot of networking groups kind of pull back. And I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna go in. I'm going to see what I can do because the one thing I'm good at is promoting people I
Yeah.
believe in, and I love doing that. So
Yeah, I see that too. I've my whole adult life I've always been a business owner. And so I've always been pro support local, pro support small businesses, but absolutely was an huge shift during COVID when like these huge corporations were getting way bigger and easier bailouts than the actual people who are out working every day and need the money to
absolutely.
survive and support their families. And so that's when I made an even bigger shift in like, okay, no, like this has got to change. We need to bring the focus back. And so many lost their businesses. We were blessed that our business was still open, but I mean, if it recovers fully pre-COVID, it'll take years
Yeah.
because of,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you said, the business commerce, like our Chamber of Commerce locally, they were just like, oh, do whatever the government says. You can't be open. And it's like, wait, no, you're supposed to be backing us up and like, no, this is
Right.
not like supporting us. So yeah, I see. That's awesome that you stepped up to do that. And kind of what was, when you had the idea, how did you kind of start bringing that into actual, like, really happening? Like, what was your first step? Was it just trying to identify businesses and go from there? It was? Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty funny because, like, think about it. My whole background had been in campaigns, right?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with business. Before that, it was kind of stuff with ministry and other stuff like that. But I said, you know what? I know enough to know that if you're passionate and you promote others, put others first, people take notice of that, especially if it's genuine, if it's
Yeah.
coming from genuine principles. So I just started going around and saying, hey, this is my vision. I don't know where it's going to go, but I will literally do everything I can on social media with our website to promote you, to get people to shop here. Because I tell people every time you pull out your wallets, you're either supporting tyranny or liberty.
Yeah.
That's always my thing. So
Yeah.
it's to me, it's black and white in that sense that there is no decision. And I think a lot of people are missing out on real community
Yeah.
by choosing the road of convenience, which is again the Amazons, the Starbucks, the Walmarts, the all the big corporations, right? But when they just choose to wait a little bit, be a little more creative, and step into a mom and pop business, like one of our businesses, for example, they're going to get a great time,
Yeah.
and they might even make a friend in there, the owner.
It's
You know,
it's
so
also a shift in the mentality behind it, because I do understand the convenience. Like, for an example, what phone can I buy that works pretty well, that I'm going to rely on for my business, that wasn't made by an unethical corporation? That's pretty hard.
oh yeah, sure.
And so
Hmm.
I do understand, but I believe also there's a need for change in mentality. Okay, let's say you're buying Christmas presents. Someone local is going to have something. Maybe it's not exactly what you had in
Exactly.
your head, but if you can shift and be flexible and understand, hey, I'd prefer to buy this blanket that's a little different than the one I wanted off Amazon, it's still going to work. Honestly, it's probably going to be more unique. They're going to appreciate it more. Be like, oh, where did you get this? I've never seen it. Because if you buy it off Amazon, probably 20 million people have the same blanket. And so it's a shift in
Exactly.
mentality. I understand the end of sometimes it's not possible. Like, I'll give an example. Very specific example. I've tried to find, because I try not to do plastic as much as possible, glass soap dispensers that were made in the US. Almost
I love
impossible.
that.
Almost impossible,
Yeah.
though. I found the mason jars, but no one sells tops. They're like, oh yeah, these are locally made mason jars, but there's no tops. So there's definitely difficulty on.
I'll work on that. Let me
Yeah,
work
do
on
it
that
for
one.
me, please. I have, like, it's been like a 3-year process of me trying. And
New
so,
homework assignment. I'll
yes,
go for.
new work
I'll
assignment.
find
Please
somebody.
add me to your
Yeah.
list. And so it's partially also part of that, trying to bring production back to the US, I think, because no one knows how to make anything anymore here. I think it's
Yep.
moving in that direction, but right now we don't have a lot of the options of buying locally for certain things. So I think it's a good thing to be active about and be, pushing forward is, hey, if everyone starts buying locally and then also starts voicing, hey, we need more of this and this and this, if there's a demand and there's the interest, the supply will come. Um,
I couldn't agree more. And actually, to further your point, to me, it's about weaning off,
yeah.
right? So things won't happen overnight, but that's why every business I bring on, businesses for liberty, I'm like, hey, now we have an ice shaver business. Now we have a bakery. Now we have an ice cream store. So oh, absolutely. This is going to take a while. I
Yeah.
mean, for goodness sake, like I've got these Apple
Yeah.
AirPods, right? But like, I would love to find someone who does the same thing,
Yeah.
just made in America or something that's local. But yeah, no. I mean, it's about putting the effort in
Yeah.
to try. And I think that's what means a lot to these small business owners,
Yeah.
when people are open rather than going, oh, autopilot, I'm just going to my Amazon account and, just take, and even actually, I'll say this too, on Amazon, you can actually click on an individual listing on there
That's
and buy from the website, and
yes.
then you're supporting them.
Exactly. And also, like, no change in your life, it happens overnight. Like, people that are like, oh, I'm going to go to cold turkey and be vegan or whatever it is you want. It never works.
Yeah.
But if you
Doesn't
take
end well.
if you take a slow transition, you're like, okay, I want to eliminate sugar. I'm going to start with no sodas, and then I'm going to go with this. The slower ones work. It's all like in almost any aspect of wanting to make a long-term effective
Mhm.
change, it's a slow transition. So this would be the same thing. It's not like overnight, oh, don't buy anything unless it's made here or made locally.
No,
It's a
right.
slow, and that's how you can make it successful and last long term. So I I love what you're doing. So what is the so currently what is Businesses for Liberty kind of, are you running it mostly on your own? And what is your day-to-day with that business, like with the networking look like? How do the businesses benefit from it? I would love to hear more kind of what's happening with it.
Yeah, so yeah, we started in March of 2021.
Okay.
So it's been over 4 years. We've built it up to nearly 300 business owners now
Wow.
in 24
Congratulations.
states,
That's
got about
awesome.
70,000 followers, and it's all been organic, just everyday people coming together. And actually, what I love is we have a group called We the Patriots USA, and I don't just talk business in there. I want people to talk about prayer needs, about local stuff going on, local sports camps, community things. Like I want to support all of them. Like
Yeah.
I'm even doing these gatherings actually in parks called God Working, which is making it fun being the key word, for Christians to come together and actually do stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, I grew up in the church. My dad's a preacher. We came to America because of ministry. But there's too much, I said this in churches,
Yeah.
there's too many people that look like they're sucking on lemons. And I'm like, we're going to a place called heaven.
You're
Like, can you
supposed to
look
be
happy
happy
about
about
it?
this.
Right, exactly. Drives me nuts. So we have like icebreakers, cornhole, of course, baseball going on
Yeah.
at these parks. And we did one in Irmo actually a couple weeks back, and it was awesome. We had people of all ages just hanging out. We kind of forced people together with these icebreaker
Yeah.
games, and people were like, "I'm so glad I was an introvert, and I kind of needed to be nudged."
Yeah. Sometimes making someone uncomfortable is a good thing.
Absolutely. With fun questions
Yeah.
like, "What's your favorite hobby? What's the last thing you purchase you're proud of?" Stuff like that. Fun things. Yeah.
That's great. I love to hear that. What is there any type of like criteria for a business that wants to join
Yeah.
Businesses for Liberty, or what is do you have like a mission of faith or a statement or something of like what your goal is with the businesses?
Yeah, and again, I am positive about all these things. I'm a pro person. That I know I said things about Walmart and Amazon, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about in general
Yeah.
these corporations that I think have hurt a lot of small businesses. But my thing is, if any business owner is pro-life, pro-liberty, pro-history, pro-Second Amendment, America first, I want to get as many people going in their store as possible. Now, if someone doesn't believe in those things, they may not be eligible for what we're doing,
Okay.
but I still am praying for them. I want them to be successful in business. But in order to be intellectually honest to all of our followers who are expecting those people to have those beliefs,
Yeah.
that's why I keep it set on those pillars. But at the same time, I owe it to those followers to keep intellectually honest on those
Well,
principles.
yeah, if you're promoting saying these are businesses that agree with these
Mhm.
teachings, it would be pretty messed up to then be promoting businesses that didn't. So,
Right,
yeah,
exactly,
I
yes,
understand that.
and I've turned away a lot of businesses again, in the most diplomatic ways, and just say, "Look, we just don't line up, but I wish you the best in business.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for your success." But that's been hard, Mary. I mean, I did it because I'd rather have less people and have people who, again, meet that
Yeah.
criteria than, like you said, be dishonest and go, "Oh, shoot, guys, sorry, I didn't know when I didn't know."
Yeah. Have you had much like aggressiveness or response, almost hateful response towards your Businesses for Liberty, or how's, because I assume with it being a very conservative stance, there's probably a huge community that would then maybe label that something negative.
Yeah, I'm actually very thankful to say there's been little bits of that. I remember when I first started, there was a lot because people had remembered me from the monuments. I'll talk about that in
Okay.
a minute. But they were quick to say, "Oh, this is racist guy." And I'm cracking. I'm like, "I'm from Ireland. I'm not even from here." And I just anyway, we'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
minute. But yeah, there was, and then there's been moments where, again, unrelated to anyone I know, people kind of out there in the ether, just coming on my page and
Sure.
attacking. But thankfully, it just kind of goes away because, again, I'm very positive. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to support our people and put all my energy into spotlighting and promoting them and telling their story rather than going after people.
Yeah, I see that. I follow your Businesses for Liberty, and you're very straightforward in what you believe and you stick with it, but I've never seen you be hateful about anything of anyone else. So I think that would probably be hard for someone. I mean, the only thing they can say is you have these conservative views that we don't agree with. I've
Exactly.
never seen anything myself of like, oh, what you're out there, fighting with people, or, you're being hateful. I've never seen that. So that's a hard but very good stance to take. I'm sure it takes everyday intentionality to continue that way. I don't even know if I
Oh
can
no,
say I do that.
I've had people say, you're a turncoat, you're not the real deal, you're not a real patriot, and I said, what? Because I'm not getting ugly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually, this would be a good time we can talk about the monuments if you
Please
want.
do. Yes, I'm really
Yeah.
interested in to hear about. Yeah, go ahead. Take it away.
So in 2020, and I'm sure your viewers remember this, there were all these monuments coming under attack. And I
Yeah.
and I don't mean protests. I'm going to be very clear on that. I'm talking about people spray
Yeah.
painting, throwing stuff at monuments, statues, you name it. It didn't really matter who it was. It could have been a Civil War general, founding father,
Yeah.
World War II, all kinds of stuff. So how it all started for me was I went downtown Charleston and I saw the Calhoun statue that was 100 feet in the air
Okay.
being spray painted. And I just went over to one guy at this, like, probably like 20 people there. And I said, this is not the way to protest, is it? I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like if you protest, you should just like vote for it to come down or, be involved in, standing out there, whatever, but not doing criminal
Destroying it.
activity.
Yeah.
Right. And within like, I'm not joking, I have this on Facebook Live, 40 seconds, I was surrounded by like 50 people that were screaming at
Oh my
me and
god.
just like racist and all these things. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I said, look, I'm from Ireland. I love this country. I just think we have to learn from our history,
Yeah.
like good, bad, and indifferent. It makes us who we are. And I mean, you might as well have thought I said I love Satan or something. I mean,
Yeah.
just the amount of hating was going on. So I had two choices in that moment: either back away or continue to stand for preserving history. And I made the second decision. And so I would go out weekend after weekend and stand in front of the Defenders of Charleston Monument downtown Charleston, in Orangeburg, in Greenville. And it was funny, this one of the worst times, not really funny, but now it kind of
Yeah.
is, but one of the worst times, I was telling people, look, as an immigrant, like, I really believe all history matters. Like, we have to learn from all of it. And they started screaming leprechaun. I'm like,
Oh my
I'm a
gosh.
pretty tall leprechaun.
Oh.
I'm 5'11".
Well, it's so
It
funny
doesn't.
how to get upset, like, oh, you're a racist, but then call you a leprechaun. It's like, wait.
I was like, that's a little bit prejudiced of you over there.
Yeah.
This one woman screamed, he thinks he's Paul Revere, and I was like, I'll take
I'll
that.
take it.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's a great derogatory statement. But no, people were following me back to my place.
Oh,
I
wow.
had to basically move underground for a couple of months. I moved to a cabin so they would know where I was. And I just continued to go out there peacefully. I remember if people came out with me, I told them, if you're going to come out here, I have the permit. If you start screaming obscenities, if you start getting ugly, you can leave.
Yeah.
Because the way we stand matters just as much as that we stand. And that's much harder than when you can stand up there and the media is watching and, third party people are watching. Are you any different than them?
Yeah.
And if you're not, and you're angry and you're screaming stuff, you're just as bad as the people you claim to be against. So that was a very hard line to hold.
I bet because a lot of people, it isn't, it's very emotional when you feel like you're having to defend values that a country set. So it can be hard to control yourself even if you're doing it out of good intentions.
Right.
And the same thing, I'm sure many of those people, I mean, obviously it's criminal. There's no, like, at that point there's no conversation about what they're doing is right or wrong because they're destroying public property. But I can also see their perspective of if they think, okay, this was this horrible person, someone told them that. It is their fault ultimately for not looking into it themselves, but I'm sure they went out there with the intention of doing something good, but emotions got involved and then it was screaming and hollering and someone threw, and it gets out of control. So being able to peacefully protest is something that is like very undervalued. It takes a lot of self-control and that's awesome. So was your stance mostly arguing against, like, obviously destroying the property, or was it a duo of also keeping the statues up?
So my argument was very simple. It was like, let's not only keep these statues up, let's
Okay.
build new monuments. Because what I would tell people is like, if you don't believe, for example, there are enough, let's just say, African American, leaders, which there are amazing heroes in
Yeah.
American history. You go through Revolutionary War, World War
Yep.
II, Civil War. Then let's build them. Like, why are we putting our energy? And if you remember, it goes all the way back to George Floyd and all that
Yeah.
happened with police and all that. So what does this have to do with talking about law enforcement? And like you said, emotionally, it became such an emotional
Yeah.
thing that people didn't even know who they were protesting against. They didn't know the history of these people.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not there to say all these statues are amazing people. They've done nothing wrong. No, I mean that's why again, history is messy. It's
Yeah.
ugly. But if you go to Ireland, I used to tell people this, if you go to Ireland, the capital of Ireland is called what? Dublin. Dublin is not an Irish name. Dublin is a Viking name. When the Vikings invaded,
They named it.
they pillaged and raped
Yeah.
and did terrible things. But we didn't rename Dublin. We didn't take down a lot of the buildings that are still there from England. We
Well,
had our own wars with the British for 800 years.
if you remove all horrible atrocities out of history, you're left with nothing almost. So you can't,
Yeah.
you can't just take it away. And like you said, I really also, it was hard for me to understand the same argument of, yeah, it is true. There's not that many African American statues compared to statues of like white activists in history. So let's add that in. Let's not tear down. I didn't get too much into the history of all the statues. I looked at it definitely from a legal criminal perspective of like, okay,
Mhm.
the same thing with some of these businesses who have refused to serve, gay couples or something for a wedding venue or something. I'm looking at it more of like, okay, that doesn't give you the right to go destroy it. At the end of the day, what you're doing is a crime. If they're doing a crime,
Right.
a discriminatory crime, take it to court. Like go through if that's what you feel is happening, don't go and then also do something. If you think they're doing something illegal, how is the right response to go and do the same thing? So did you ever I assume that first time when you walked over and got surrounded, you felt physically in danger. Was there any other times that you had, I hope, or did you ever physically get attacked or assaulted or anything like that? Or were you able to maintain space?
No, I mean, there were definitely moments where it felt hairy.
Yeah.
Those like the hair stand on the back of your head kind of thing when you're walking through areas where you know you're not wanted, especially Charleston. I hate saying that because I love Charleston, but the problem is it became such a cesspool of the colleges indoctrinating people
Yeah.
to not only
Okay.
disagree, which I'm all about that. By the way, Charlie Kirk, a hero of mine, and I love that he would let people disagree with him, but it was the fact that you were demonized.
Mm.
You were less than. You were, again, that's the opposite of empowering people.
Yeah.
I think that, like, even you and I having a discussion about things we agree and disagree with is amazing. That's what America
Yeah.
is. We lose the right to agree to disagree. We lose our freedom. But I felt, yeah, there were definitely moments for sure where I was being followed back places, stuff like that. And of course, years later, January 6th, I get tear gassed and shot in the leg with a rubber bullet. But that's a whole other
Yeah.
that's a
So
whole other story.
So I didn't you personally meet Trump? I think I saw on your page before of like a picture with him. Can tell me about that? Like what how did that happen? And was there a conversation or was it more just like a hello? What happened?
I was such a scaredy cat in that picture, actually. I remember, so when I was going to Charleston Southern University,
Okay.
you remember that back
Yep.
in the day? It was my senior year. I was about to graduate, and I get a text from this great guy, Eddie Taylor. He's big in the Citadel Republican group and all that, and
Okay.
he's a pretty wealthy guy and very connected. Anyway, he sends me a text, and I'm in class, and he's like, "Hey, you want to meet Trump?" And I'm like, "No, I'm busy." I'm like, "Of course, but where do I go?" So he said, "I'll meet you in an hour at this part of the campus." So he brings me along with like 20, maybe 25 Citadel cadets. Me and
Okay.
Atlee Hammond were the only two CSU guys. And we get to go on the plane. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like Trump Force One. This is before he announced. So this was his own plane.
Okay.
But he had come to speak to the Citadel and get on the plane. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to get a chance to shake his hand. I have no
Right.
idea what's going to happen. So I get over to him and he says to me, "What do you want to do with your life, kid? Like, what's your?" And I was just so freaking nervous. I'm
Well,
like,
I was
"It's
like,
Donald
I
Trump,"
bet it felt
like,
like surreal. Like, wait, is this actually happening right now?
right. And I'm just this college student who's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. So I said, "Sir, I want to be a political staffer, sir." And he said, "No, no, no. Think bigger than that." I was like, I thought that was pretty big
Yeah, you were like,
at the time.
whoa,
I
that
thought,
was like my end goal.
I was slammed down. So I was like, shoot. I said, "Well, sir, I'll do my best." And I shook his hand. There's actually that picture where he's got this big grin and we're
Yeah.
kind of shaking hands on the plane. But it actually did plant a seed in my head that, yeah, I don't want to just do the typical. I want to dream big. If you're going to dream, you might as well dream big. But it wasn't a long exchange,
Yeah.
just maybe a couple minutes. But he was very nice to me, and we talked about a few little things. But that was what really
Stuck
I can
out.
remember from that conversation.
That's awesome. And so what year did you say that was?
That was 2015.
Oh, that was 2015. That was way before. Had
Yeah,
he even
that was
announced at
right
that point
before he
that he was
announced.
running for
That was
president?
like 1 month away from announcing.
Okay, so that was before everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so then tell me about like so currently politically, I what happened with are you part of or like identify whatever you want to call it like with the MAGA group or not? And I think were you at the January 6th and what happened with that? Okay.
I'll start with the crazy
Yeah,
story first, and I'll
go
tell
with
you.
that.
Yeah, so I went to DC January 6th, 2021, and my intention was to stand for a free and fair election. And all we were people forget this. All we were calling for was a 10-day, not year, not 6 months, 10-day audit where we could just look and make sure there was nothing weird happening in some of these states like Wisconsin,
With the voting,
Georgia,
right? With the yeah.
with the voting, yeah, like with the stuffing the ballots and stuff. We just want to make sure. I mean, just because again, you have to remember with COVID, everything was in question.
Yeah, there was a lot of
The way,
fishiness around
right.
that entire election.
So my thinking was, I'm not there. I mean, I was there wearing a suit and tie, and I was carrying a flag. I wasn't wearing an oxygen mask. I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't there
You
in
weren't prepared for
military.
what was actually about to happen.
I wasn't prepared at all because it was so cold that day, and I should have worn an
Oh,
overcoat, and I was freezing my butt. But I was okay. So I was about 8 rows back on the inauguration side.
okay.
So within distance of the doors, but not anywhere close to where I could actually like grab a door,
Yeah.
which I wouldn't do anyway. And anyway, so I'm out there and we're singing "God Bless America." I'll never forget it. And we're just hoping that the Senate and House will pause the ratification so we can do this audit.
Okay.
So suddenly, out of nowhere, we see way more guards up there looking down on us, like way more, like they doubled their numbers. And I'm thinking, they're not about to just do what I think they're going to do. And sure enough, tear gas comes out, and you couldn't move. There were so many people
Yeah.
there. I mean, of all walks of life, by the way. I remember seeing rabbis and these black MAGA rappers, all
Yeah,
these
just a
people.
bunch of
And
yeah.
I remember trying to move, and I was like, this is actually kind of scary because if we can't breathe, I mean, that stuff. I tasted that stuff for like 3 days. It's
Oh
terrible.
my gosh.
But all I could think about was the kids that they're way down here, and for them to breathe and all those kinds of things. So once that happened, I knew this is terrible. I got to get out of here. But then almost instantaneously, my leg gets hit where the rubber bullet. I'm like, did I just get shot? Like I was just like what just happened? And
Wait,
sure enough, I was bleeding, but thankfully, it was just a rubber bullet
so not to
at the
interrupt you,
time.
to like so you're saying whenever you were like standing out there where you were at was chill? Like there was nothing like it was just everyone standing out there waiting and then they just started throwing tear gas and rubber bullets?
Yeah, they fired way out into the crowd. So like, yeah, I didn't obviously break a window, go in somewhere I
Yeah.
shouldn't have gone in, to do any of that. And actually, when the FBI called me, I said, "Now listen, I want you to remember something. So I know you're just doing your job. I want you to remember something. I was an intern in Congress for an entire year in 2008. I gave 100 tours of that place,
Mm,
including to my parents. Do you really think I would do anything to damage a sacred? Okay, like I
yeah.
really revere Congress, and I really revere the history of the building. And in fairness to the FBI agent, he said, "Hey, I'm just doing my job, man.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know." And I said, "I know, but can you write that down? Like
Yeah,
there were so many of us who
put
did
that on
nothing
the
wrong."
record that I said this.
You're right, exactly. I don't want you to forget this. And I said, and I also said, and you know where I was at because you know where everyone was, and you can see I'm wearing a suit and tie. Yes, I'm carrying my Betsy Ross flag. I mean, really, is that going to be a weapon? But I'm like, look, I mean, just look at my record. Okay, look at everything I've done. It's always been about being peaceful.
Yeah.
So anyway, so to answer your second question, is how I identify. I am a Christian, liberty-minded fighter for liberty. Like to me, it's not about like I suppose I would say I'm MAGA in the sense I do support President Trump. I do support people who obviously stand for those pillars I said earlier: life, liberty, history,
Yeah.
Second Amendment, America first. But I feel like these labels sometimes are lame because it doesn't really encapsulate the entirety of one's opinion. And I think we need to be more thinking about issues and principles rather than personalities. That's just me.
Yeah. I mean, I think even just the labels of Democrat and Republican, those are tough because it's like, I mean, me personally, I don't identify with either of those. If you're like, if it has to be this criterion, it has to be, it's like, okay, well, I have a little bit of both. What am I? You know? So I do get the thing of labels. So I'm referring more towards which I'm sure you are familiar with, like the really extreme MAGA supporters that it's like, whatever Trump says, we believe this. We're
Right.
doing it no matter. He's like the best guy ever. I'm like, hey, he's a good business guy. I don't think he's the best guy ever. Like,
Right.
most people don't get to be where they're at for being good, get that successful being like a nice guy. And that's fine. Sometimes you need somebody not nice to fix a problem. But I'm referring more towards like I don't know. Can you recognize the extreme portion of MAGA, or do you recognize that? Because I know some people I brought it up to and they have said, no, like MAGA's great. Like it's a great group, or however you even want to identify what that is. And they don't seem to kind of be able to identify or recognize maybe some of the negative aspects of an entire group of people doing whatever their supposed leader says without thinking, or even badly interpreting what their leader says and then doing stuff that they didn't even mean, or the danger around that, I guess. Do you recognize that, or how do you feel about the kind of MAGA idea as a whole?
So this might be a controversial thing to say, but for me, I really do believe I'm far right. But here's my definition of far right. It's very different than a lot of other people. To me, it's about common sense. It's about our values as believers. But what it's not about is putting yourself in a place to where you demonize others,
Mm.
where you wouldn't want to be demonized yourself. So I'll give you an example. So the reason I support President Trump so much is because this is just real life talking. When I stood those monuments with my life threatened repeatedly, um, so many Republicans ran away.
Hmm.
People I'd known for years, Mary, people who I'd stood with, that
Yeah.
pro-life stuff I'd done, wanted nothing to do with me, wanted nothing to do with the cause. And Trump came out and said, if anyone vandalizes a federal monument, you get 10 years in jail. And what that said to me and so many of us who were just trying to do the right thing, protecting property, even if you forget history for a second, just property, is if someone has our back, someone actually cares. I mean, you had all these, like Congress people and the governor, all these, like not really wanting to say anything.
Yeah, well, I will agree that a very admirable thing that I have recognized consistently over time with Trump is he's not scared to stand up or say something. Even if it's something I don't believe in, I'll be like, well, at least, he kind of has the ability, he's not scared to stand up and say that. And that does say a lot, because so many people, whether in their positions of power or even just a friend that's scared to even speak up to you about like, hey, no, I don't agree with that. It is a widespread kind of culture right now that's really not great. You should be able to, and should, not that you should be able to, you should also stand up for what you believe in and stand behind it, especially when it's hard. So I can understand and respect that a lot of.
Well, and let me just kind of elaborate on some more of the issues,
Yeah.
why I say I'm far right. So the other reasons are being an immigrant. I'll tell you one thing that this drives me nuts. Illegal immigration hurts us the most. The reason it took me 18 years going through all that paperwork, I talked to John one day and I never talked to John again, start over with Mary, is because what they would tell me is, hey, we're so sorry, but we're so inundated
Mm-hmm.
and we have to fill all these quotas. So we were put at the back of the line.
You're going to be put on the back burner
people
each
who
year
wanted to
and
do
wait.
it the right way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, it's
So
tough.
immigration means a lot to me.
Well, it was funny. A lot of people I know here in Colorado. Colorado is very liberal over, like, well, the city is. The cities,
Right, depending on
it's
which
like
part is, yeah.
Denver and Boulder, but the rest of the state is not at all. And I live right in the city. And so there was a lot of people that didn't understand, and I would have these conversations personally. We don't understand how any Latino could vote for Trump. And then it was that they thought the statistics were incorrect when it was showing that the Latino vote were higher in this past election than in previous ones. And I'm like, well, you have to understand that immigrants that do it the proper way appreciate it so much more than we do as Americans, because they're like, wait, this is a real process. Like, you have to have interviews, you have to be asked questions, you have to know the history. It's expensive. Yeah. It cost a lot of money. And so I thought that was interesting. They were like, they didn't believe it. So I was like, we have to understand that the Latino and immigrant population, which a lot of them in the U.S. are Latino, but the immigrant population in general is so more appreciative of the whole process.
Yeah, some of my favorite people I have met that are immigrants, and of course I always love to meet fellow immigrants, are Cuban Americans.
Yeah.
Like they had to escape, barely,
Well, like,
able to have anything with them.
I feel like Cubans are just the most like capitalism all the way. They're like, we came from, like, we know what it's like to not have this. And it's so funny because people often be like, oh, Latinos don't. I'm like, yeah, some of them do because the Cubans do. They're like the most gung
Mhm.
ho community. I love it. It's
They're
amazing.
the reason Florida's gone for Trump
Yeah.
multiple
Yep.
times. The Cuban
Absolutely.
Americans, yeah.
I love Florida. We go down there on vacation. I'm like, it is just such a fun vibe going to Miami
Oh,
and all, Tampa. It is fun.
a lot of baseball down there, by the way, too. Ton of
Really,
baseball in Florida. Oh yeah.
that's
Hmm.
awesome. Learned something new. Um, so yeah, so the immigration, so the immigration and what else did you have other ones you want
Yeah.
to share?
So yeah, history is preserving history, immigration. I would also say, obviously, the pro-life issue to
Mm,
me. This is what changed my view on it. If ever you're curious, so in 2012, I have a crazy college journey. I went from Orange Coast College in California to George Washington University in DC
okay.
to Charleston Southern to College of Charleston, back to Charleston
See,
Southern,
you moved around
and I
just a bit.
I, I was in college a little bit longer than most people. But I can say this that um, when it came down to just what I saw in all these different places, um, there was one person that really stood out to me, and I'll just say his first name, Eric, because Eric with a C, not Eric with a K,
Okay.
Eric. And one day we were at a pool party. Like I was in a fraternity, believe it or not, I was in Beta Theta Pi, and I remember I was a recruitment guy. Nobody wanted this guy, and he has so much ability. He could fix anything, any kind of computer, laptop, whatever technical stuff you had. And one day he said, "Can I show you something?" I said, "Yeah." He showed me that he had gash marks on his stomach.
Hmm.
And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, they tried to abort me a number of times, and it was because my mom was raped, you know." And I said, "Man, I'm so sorry." I said, "I've always struggled with this because of, there are exceptions, right, and things that
Yeah.
can happen." And he asked me a question I'll never forget. And he said, "Do I not deserve to be here?"
Mm,
And I was like, "Man, I can't imagine this guy not being here."
yeah.
So that really like made me a hard line, like, "Hey, I want this guy here. I want people like, who have this value, even though a terrible thing happened, but look what great came from it." But I'm also very understanding to say I'm not a woman at the same
Yeah.
time. And I want to be prayerful about everyone's different situation, what could be going on, which is why I love organizations like Moment of Hope,
Yeah.
where they just talk to people before they make that decision. But obviously, again, people being criminal and burning down abortion places isn't the right,
Isn't the right
again,
thing either.
way to go either.
It's
Right.
the abortion topic for me is also such a hard one because I look at it from like my beliefs on being pro life or pro choice has to do with what I believe is moral. And so it's like, yeah, I can appreciate and 100% understand. Like, I can't imagine being in a situation where I was raped and became pregnant. And obviously, like, that would be just a horrible,
Hmm.
horrible situation to be in. But then I also am like, but at the end of the day, is the right decision taking another life or doing another bad thing because a bad thing happened? So I'm definitely one of those people that I've had friends that have had abortions, and I would never be hateful to them for that or tell them how they're going to hell or you did this horrible thing, you'll never.
Oh,
But I do feel heartbroken about it because I think it's just a horrible situation overall. um that is such a hard, and especially in your case, meeting someone that it was personal, he told you like, hey, I
yeah.
wouldn't have been here if this had happened. It makes it even harder. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it makes it so hard because I am like, yeah, if you're in this world, I can understand that completely. I think there should be more resources and organizations. And in the past few years, I've seen a lot of them come up of like, we understand if you can't have and keep this baby because that's all, like, that would be hard every day to see that child and be like, okay, this kid kind of looks like the person that raped me or that, the horrible
Yeah.
situation, but that can give you the resources so that you're not burdened financially. You're not worried about what's going to happen with this child. They can find a family to adopt them. And I think if a lot of the funds that were being put into incentivizing abortions were put into how can we help support these women that have gone through this, then I think most people overall, whether you're right or left, agree that having an abortion is not a great thing. It's not an ideal situation. Obviously there's going to be extremists that are out there that are just nuts, either end of it.
Right.
But I think most people as a whole agree, hey, abortion's not the best option. It is just kind of trying to fix a situation quickly, but it's not really ultimately. So I wish so badly that we could get more of those organizations, because I've heard people's personal stories telling me, yeah, I didn't want to have an abortion. I felt like it was my only option, but I found this organization that helped me. And I'm so happy because now this child's alive and with a family that, they'll have a great life with. So yeah, that's
Well, what I tell
tough.
people is, as conservatives and far right, whatever you want to, again, the
Yeah.
labels, don't really matter as much to me. We need to be calling for so much more adoption and helping
Yeah.
these adoption groups within America, because I mean, people are waiting months, years on these lists for babies from Russia and China and all over the world. So why don't we make it easier here? So as passionate as you are with ending abortion, we need to be with having compassion and helping these, like you
Well,
said, these kids be raised.
you probably don't know this, but my husband and I have been in the process of trying to do an adoption for a few years, and the US makes it almost impossible. Like
Ridiculous.
it's the most ridiculous
Mm.
thing. Some organizations we found are just baby mills. They're like, "Oh, give us an application. You can start your process for $20,000." Just your application. And they're like, and then down the
Wow.
road there might be more expense. I'm like, whoa, no, I'm not like trying to buy a child. I'm trying to
Right.
I know there's cost involved because they're lawyers and things like that. So then now we've been going through, because I'm like, listen, no, I know there's children that need to be adopted that aren't me waiting for like a woman that's being paid to have a child for me to adopt. And so now we've been going through the foster care system. It's all money. It's all about money, every single portion of it. And it's been so upsetting. It's been so difficult that they almost make it impossible for you to be able to do an adoption, because it's all about money. At the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
just like, hey, it takes longer for us to try to do this process for you to adopt them than it does to just send them back to their parents or send them over here, or send them to a group home. And yeah, there's somebody needs, like a lot of people. It's not one person. A lot of people need to get together about that issue, because it's a huge issue. There's so many people that want children and can't have them. And we shouldn't be having to adopt children from other countries. It makes no sense.
No.
Right now in the U.S., what is it, Giuseppe? How many children are currently available for, like, need to be adopted in the U.S. right now? Can you look at? I think it's something like 145,000. I mean, yeah, if you'll look it up and tell me, just so I don't say the wrong number. But it's like a lot of kids. And so why have I been trying to do this now for 2 or 3 years and can't adopt a
Yeah.
kid?
No, it's crazy. No,
Um,
no. No, and the other thing I'm very passionate about is more churches need to step up and help a woman or a child
yeah.
who had something like that happen. Do not put them in the corridor of shame. This is when you need to step up and show the love of Christ and tangibly help that person. And that's why a lot of people have relied on the government, because the church has abdicated its job in doing that.
Well, that's okay. What is it? Total children currently waiting for adoption between 108 and 117,000 are eligible for adoption. That's not even foster care. There's much more in foster care. That's just for adoption. And it's like, why? Why is anyone having to adopt from another country? It's because the U.S. does make it difficult, very difficult. We looked into options in other countries just to compare, and it was so easy. It's like within 6 to 12 months, we can have an adoption fully done and be here with a kid. So yeah, the church, I do agree with that, because, I grew up in a very conservative church, the church, and my dad, a pastor and everything. And definitely there's been a lot of shame often put around the women that are young girls or that get pregnant, especially if they're not married or anything like that, or if they're a teenager. And that needs to change. There needs to be a support system. Like, that's literally what we're supposed to do as Christians. We're supposed to be helping those in need. And so that's tough. I wish churches would just, I've been impressed here in Colorado. There quite a lot of the churches have those type of programs, and even a lot of the churches in DC now. Because I have a sister who lives in DC, and I've been really impressed when I go there the amount of churches and organizations in DC that are helping women with unwanted pregnancies, whether they were rape or just unwanted, not planned, and that's been impressive and good to see. I wish we could have that everywhere because
Yeah.
it would. Yeah. It's like, I get, like, so upset. I'm like, it's always the money. At the end of the day, it's always the money, and that's just so bothersome when we put money above human lives and babies, and, it
Oh,
bothers me
and
a
it's
lot.
happening with everything. Yeah, and I guess the final answer I'll say to the whole why I say far right thing is, I mean, think about like these pharmaceutical companies that have just literally profited off regular people being stuck on their meds, and it's not making them better. It's making them dependent. And I think, again, our job is to take the power away from these special interest people who can run this country for so
Yeah.
long and bring it back to the people. So it's aggressive, and I'm
Oh,
proud of that because
I
to
mean,
me, it's
I can go down the rabbit hole on all of the corruption, and I am very, very much, I have been a huge health and food advocate for many years before even the whole Make America Healthy Again, which I think was a great way to
mhm,
try to keep pushing it that way. Because it's all corporations that are intertwined with politicians and government stuff running everything. And people will often think, oh, you sound so extreme or conspiracist. I'm like, no, it's like, I can
no,
just show it to you. It's true. Like, even just our meat, our produce, like all of this things surrounding our dairy, is like there's no reason. Like, the same companies will be selling the same products in other countries that don't have these chemicals in them, but they're not doing it here. And it's like it all goes back to pharmaceutical companies, because as long as you stay sick, then you don't have to be on
yeah,
medications.
they don't want you to get better.
No,
No,
of
they, they,
course
they
not.
want you to be a wonderful customer for them
Yeah.
for a long time. Well, one thing I'll say too about going back to when we all met and everything, like you remember Brad
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yeah.
met Brad and we immediately connected politically, and then Pastor Steve, and we would go, the state house with pastors. And one of the things I always appreciated about the church we met at was so many churches wanted nothing to do with anything we were trying to fight against up at,
Mm.
in Columbia. And I was so grateful whenever a church would say, you know what, we're not going to hang around and just watch the news. Let's be part
Yeah.
of changing some of these things. So, um, yeah, I'm just so grateful, even though, of course, I was courting Joy back in the
Yeah.
day. And actually, that was a whole other experience. Here's this Irish guy coming through
Yeah.
and, come to a church. Because I'd never even seen a church like that. Like, I came from the non denominational background,
Okay.
my whole Calvary
Oh,
Chapel.
yeah. It
But,
feels
um,
is much more of a family.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just so grateful for all the connections through that because it's just been wonderful. God has a mysterious ways He works for sure.
Working through the So, had you always had an interest in politics, from a young age, or was it mostly when you got into university, or how did that come around?
Another good one. I always loved history because when I did homeschooling like 2/3 of my education. So I fell in love with reading all these, which I would tell people autobiographies. Read
Yes.
autobiographies, and you'll know the real story of what people and the letters that people wrote. So history kind of led to that. I worked, like I said before, on Rick Perry's campaign, Ted Cruz, and that kind of got my feet wet with on understanding all of that. Um, but yeah, no, I've always been not a politics nerd, but someone that just wants to see real things happen.
Yeah.
There's so many people who are posing out there, just getting pictures with people. I don't care, but like, what are you actually doing? I don't care what your title is. I care again not where your heart is, but where your actions are. And so I watch all these politicians, and if Businesses for Liberty gets big enough, we're going to make an impact in South Carolina and beyond
Yeah.
from the business world pushing these lawmakers to do the right thing.
So, with you, I know that, like you said, you kind of identify as a far right or conservative. Do you Are you, like, when you think of Trump, for an example, I know that you're a big Trump supporter and you've met him, and, it's been personal as
Yeah.
well. Do you notice or identify some of the negative things about him, or do you feel like just overall he's just like a great, great, awesome guy? Kind of, what is your stance on him as a person?
So I think his heart is right. I mean, because again, like you said, making a stand when it's not popular, I've appreciated that. Everyone's styles are different. Obviously, there's certain things I wouldn't have said that he said. There's certain things maybe that he wouldn't have said that I would
Yeah.
say. Right. So we're different in ways that we would probably like if I was to sit down with him, which I would love to get my second opportunity. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Is I would love to say, President Trump, you've got so many things you can just completely focus on that are positive, that are getting our country back working again, all these great things. Let's just focus there
Yeah.
rather than having to fight every little fight. But at the same time, he got there doing what he did, and
Yeah.
so who am I to come in and say you
It's a
should do it
strategy.
differently?
It's working. It's
Right,
like you
right,
got him
right.
there.
But I am definitely my own person in the way that I approach things. But I admire the man because his work ethic is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And I read Are the Deal, Are the Comeback. Are the Comeback's actually a better read than Are the Deal. People
I've
forget
never
that.
read Art. I've read Art of the Deal. And that was pretty interesting because especially like I listened to the audiobook and he um like had a really great person doing and it was just like I was like, okay, this kind of makes you understand a little bit about who he is.
Mhm.
He's a business person. That's what he is. Like he never says he's nice.
Exactly.
He's never said I'm a nice person.
No.
I'm a business
And survive in
person.
New York, yeah, with the
Yeah, in New
crazy
York,
real
like
estate world, yeah.
it's just he's just a New Yorker. Um, so I have you how do you feel about this kind of it was this election I feel like primarily it happened of this push of with him kind of saying and being a part of the Christian community and really pulling that community in. How do you feel like do you feel like that was a campaign thing to kind of get more supporters and voters and get into that community or do you I never saw him say much. I think that he's a very American with Christian values, but not necessarily like a practicing Christian. But I've heard the point of view from a lot of family and friends and individuals that he's, this man of God. How do you feel about that?
I think when in Butler, Pennsylvania, when he almost I mean, crazy, he looked over at this immigration chart, right? I'm proud of that by his
Yeah.
immigration chart, and if he hadn't looked at that exact second, he'd be gone.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be here today, right? So I do think that had an impact on him.
Mm.
You It's not something like, "Oh my gosh, he suddenly started quoting verses every." No, but I do think he realized his mortality, especially in the weeks after that.
I mean, you
Um,
would have to. I feel like you would have
you'd
to with
have to,
something
right,
like that was it wasn't someone shot at you. It's like they shot at you and it hit your ear. That's like as
yeah,
crazy as it can get. You know what I mean? As close as it
right.
can get.
Yes. So my stance on Trump and spirituality is I pray every day that God would continue to work on him,
Yeah.
you know, to where he can take on board like, look, it's not you against the world. If you rest on me, I've got it all handled. You don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it. But at the same time, I do think when that happened, an irreversible effect hit him, and I think even when post presidency. I really hope I get down to Mar-a-Lago because I would love to talk to him about that. I really would. And listen, if Businesses for Liberty gets as big as I think it's going to, I'll be having another meeting with him.
That would be awesome. The what I'll say this the I saw this I don't know if you saw this it just made me laugh like just how like he is blatantly honest sometimes. The other day there was a reporter, he was like getting on Air Force One or something and they were like, what about heaven or something. He's like, I don't think I'm gonna be in heaven. I don't think I'm gonna be
Oh,
there.
I
I
heard
was
that.
like, how could you imagine even just saying that? Like, I guess he's being honest, but he's like, yeah, I don't
Right.
think I'm really worrying too much about, me going to heaven. And I was just laughing. I was like, it's so funny, but at the same time, you have to respect the honesty. You
He's
know
so
what I mean?
unfiltered.
It's
He's so
yeah,
unfiltered. Yeah.
he's
Mhm.
crazy.
Absolutely.
Okay,
But even saying something like that, I think he's kind of like Joe Rogan.
yeah,
He's open. I think he's way more open than he's ever been, and that's
yeah.
what gets me excited. And
Oh,
that's why I need my second meeting.
yes, I hope that you like, especially if you could get a meeting on video, like that would just be like amazing to see
Oh yeah.
how that, like, I would love to see secondhand, like experience, what your experience was, to
Hmm.
see how that is. Oh, so, okay, I know this is like a huge controversial topic, But one thing that did just recently happen that kind of bothered me. I was like, this can't, the Epstein list thing, because I understand reasons why he couldn't share it. I understand there's a lot, but it's like, okay, I have the Epstein list and I'm going to share it soon too. There's no Epstein list. It never, like, did you keep, I assume you're like really into everything that's happening every day. What was your take on that?
Yeah, my thing with that is there is obviously a lot at stake with this.
Yeah.
When you think about the kind of like, again, I'm only guessing here,
Yeah.
guesstimating or whatever you would call it, but I wonder if there were people that were either tied into financial institutions or something that, oh my goodness, if their names came out, that could absolutely obliterate markets. I don't know. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing is you wonder what it is, but what I'm proud to hear is that people haven't stopped talking about it
Yeah.
and that the American people are like, no, 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 we want to know, just kind of like with JFK. But this is so much more than that. This is, I mean, any woman who has gone through abuse like that, they need to be. I mean, there needs to be justice for
Yeah.
them. So I'm proud of both. I mean, you've got people on the far left, the far right, saying, "Hey, we want accountability," and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. I do believe that it was something, if the list was released, the response would be, in his opinion, was going to be way more catastrophic for whatever reason than saying, oh, but the whole thing of like, wait, there's no list. I'm like, okay, why couldn't you just say we can't release the list like everyone
Right,
else has
right.
done for the past 10 years? But yeah, I've been super impressed as well, because I feel like before the Epstein list was like this this far left thing, like when it was happening and everyone's, it doesn't really exist. And then it kind of got pushed to the other end of like all the far, it's like, no, release the list. And then now I feel like it's almost kind of been from both sides, because they're like, wait, we both realize something's weird about this. Like, we need justice, especially for the women and girls, and to not protect billionaires and all these big people in power and all of that. But I don't know, like, if it'll ever be released, because I feel like every person that's had the opportunity to release it, whatever's on there, has been something that they're like, oh no, wait, we can't release this, which honestly makes me worry more about it, because I'm like, okay, I already
I
know
know,
how
I know.
crazy this is, but how far does it actually go if that's, no one,
Well,
no
it kind
end.
of ties in for me again with the corporation thing,
Yeah.
right? Like these top names, whoever these families are, these people are, they've got way too much power, way too much access to things they shouldn't have access to,
Yeah.
whether it be underage people or whatever. It was just disgusting, revolting. What is out going? We only knew, 10% of what's going on.
Oh
I
gosh.
mean, we would be,
I know. It's
you know
like
what
the
I mean?
little bit I know and I know a lot more of the crazy, deep conspiracies than your average person. And I know it's just like barely the surface. If we actually knew, I don't even want to know it, honestly. It's like, I know it's good to know these things, but I'm like, it's too much for me. I can't handle all of that, because then that's where you get to these, there's so many people now, especially in the US, that feel hopeless and, oh, there's no point in trying anymore, and it's not
Yeah.
even worth it. And I feel like if I knew all of it, maybe I would feel somewhat like that. And so it's rough. How are you feeling about 2028? What, like, who, how, where, I know this is obviously just personal opinion. I'm not going to be like, okay, Erik, you messed this prediction up. But how are you, like, where are you feeling that's moving towards? Who would you feel would be like a good Republican candidate? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, before I answer that, I do want to say too, when Charlie was murdered, like that really had a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
impact on me. That shook me to my core because, for a lot of reasons. One, I admire the guy. I love that he went to college campuses where no one else would go.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing he would do was not when he was speaking; it's when someone would come up and he'd put the mic down.
Yep.
He'd physically put it down, not like waiting to interject. Because a lot of these people on interviews are like, oh wait, oh, yeah, and they're cutting in on people. He didn't do that. He really did listen to people. But what really got me too was he was 31, right,
Mm,
when he was killed. When I was standing at the monuments, I was 31. And I remembered my greatest fear was my folks finding out thousands of miles away that I was killed, because people were being followed
yeah.
back to their cars. There were stabbings. It was terrible. So it was weird to be in the same kind of field as someone who younger than you, um, who I watched so many of his videos, and so I felt compelled after that to go to as many vigils as I could. I went to Greenville, went to where was that? Barnwell.
Yeah.
I was at the one in Mount Pleasant, in downtown Charleston, in Somerville. I almost went to the one in Arizona. But again, someone who understood the value of agreeing to disagree, the
Yeah,
beauty of
it's
that.
I
Yeah.
that whole Charlie thing was just I think it was a like an unforgettable thing for our country. I'm sad that there was obviously in somehow there was some obvious celebration over it in a weird way. I can't comprehend that. A lot of the stuff that he said I did not agree with, but that's like you should be able to share. And like you said, I loved that he would always like it was
Mhm.
intentional. It was intentional.
Yep.
Hey, you have the space to share your mind. And then when you're done with that, I'm going to respond. No, not a lot of people do that. They're really just waiting. Okay, I'm going to say this now. Or they're thinking about what they're going to say next instead of listening. He was a great listener. I can definitely agree with that. And I don't care who, like, it's unacceptable. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's
it
a
makes
human
no
thing. This
sense.
should be a human
Yeah.
issue, not
Yeah,
political at
exactly.
all. I agree.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, that was tough because my husband's turning 31 in a couple weeks. And I was like, I just can't imagine. I cannot imagine. And also I'm glad that it had the opposite response of instead of shutting people down to be scared to go out, I think it did the opposite. I think it got
Opposite.
people
I
worked up
agree.
like,
I've seen that.
whoa, is this where we're at? Is this like now we're killing people because we don't agree with what they say? And I don't be like, oh, well, he made a change. Like, it's good that it happened. No, I don't think there's any circumstance where it was good that that happened, but I'm hoping something good can maybe come out of it in the sense of people understanding, hey, we cannot, like, we have to stand up and not allow this to continue down this way because that makes no sense. Like how anyone could see that and be fine with it or much less celebrate it or, oh, well, he deserved. It's like, no one like
No.
there's some crazy,
Yeah.
crazy liberal, like out there people that I think need to be shut down because they're nuts. I don't think they should be killed. I don't think that. I mean, I think
No.
also they should have as long as they're not hurting someone or advocating to hurt someone or hurt children, then they should have their right to speak their mind about it.
One thing Charlie did that I loved was I don't know if you know Cenk Uygur with Young Turks. It's a massive podcast,
Yeah.
left
Okay.
populist show, and he invited Cenk to Turning Point to be a speaker, talking about how we've got to take out the establishment on both sides.
Hmm.
So the corporatists in the Democratic Party and the corporatists in the Republican Party, and I mean, very few people would have done that. Very
No,
few people
yeah.
would have brought a self-proclaimed leftist populist to come in and say, "Hey, congratulations on knocking out Dick Cheney and some of these old guard people,
Yeah.
and be a wrecking ball in your party as we're trying to do in our party." Because the everyday person who's just working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week doesn't really care about these special
Yeah.
interests. And in fact, they hate them. So Charlie did some things that people don't give him any credit for when it comes to having conversations that others
Yeah.
wouldn't have.
No, it is true. I that is it's I kind of put him in that field of like Joe Rogan and these different people who they're that should be more normalized. That should be the norm. That should be the norm, which I feel like it was, 50 years ago that you and your buddies could sit around and have a beer and be like, you idiot, that's not how that should be. That's not how that. And then like you argue with each other and you're like, you get angry. Maybe you don't talk for a couple of days and like, hey, you want to go out this weekend or you want to go, play some ball or something. That's how it should be because that's America. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
is like that was the whole point of America is that everyone has the freedom and everyone has the right and we're not supposed to hate each other over it unless there's specific situations where like if you're advocating for someone being harmed like or advocating for
Right.
something bad and evil, no, I don't think that we should just be friends and get over it. But in most cases, I think most Americans are pretty level-minded. But they're not speaking out maybe. I think the ones that speak out are the more extremist ones. And so people are like, oh, this is what everyone wants. We want these agendas, these very far left extreme agendas. Whereas I don't think the average American necessarily wants that. But they need to stand up and say that. It's kind of one of those things where it's like not saying is going along with it in a way. And so you do need to take a stand. But yeah, the Charlie Kirk, like I said, a lot of things that he advocated for, I don't necessarily agree with. But I think as a person, like, I respected him. I thought he was amazing. I thought he had great values overall. Like, I really believe the values he taught were really good, genuine values. And I think everyone could learn a lot from that. Like, be a little more
Yeah,
like
I've
that.
actually been in conversations with Turning Point, and they have a really cool new thing called Turning Point Young Professionals, and
Okay.
that's to get all these people who've graduated to know each other all across the
Mm,
country, not just on college campuses. One thing that I want to learn, or I want to take from Charlie, is making it fun. That's why I'm doing
yeah.
the whole God working thing, making it fun to get people together where it doesn't seem like, that awkward moment in the church service, like, oh, say hello to someone you don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
nobody meets that way. Nobody,
Yeah.
drives me nuts. So this is the opposite of that. And I just love when people can make it infectious to be together.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to take from Charlie as well, as when I'm doing these events, is like, let's just tear down these barriers, these artificial, lame things that are getting in the way of people getting to know each other.
Well, Eric, I think though that you are exceptional in that sense because a lot of people aren't doing it that way on both ends. I'm not saying this is a right or left issue. On both ends, I think there's a lot of let's get together with the people that agree with us. Let's, talk about all the things we agree on instead of, hey, let's get together and have fun. Let's be a community. Like, politics are so important, but also I don't think they should be the most important thing. Politics should not be the most important thing in all of our lives. Like family, community, those type of things should be the most important things. And so, I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing of just, like you said, like, you're not coming together and being like, okay, do you agree with this before you come in to play baseball? No, it's like, it's like, no, like, let's get together and let's be friends, let's get to know each other.
Do these things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the 2028, how are you feeling about that?
Oh yeah.
Or what are you thinking?
So the reason I brought in Charlie Kirk into it is Charlie was a big supporter of JD Vance,
Okay.
and I guess they were friends. So it's gonna. I mean, you gotta let these primaries pan out, right?
Yeah.
You gotta see who ends up running. But right now, I'd probably say I'm leaning JD. But I'm curious to see who throws their name in the ring. And I remember that in 2016, and
It comes out of the woodwork.
2011 before that. Yeah, I'm very curious to watch to see who ends up running.
Yeah, that's great. Did you have anything else you kind of wanted to share about you or your business? I'm hoping maybe we do this again, down the road, and
Oh, we
maybe
need a
maybe I'll
part two
bring you
for
back
sure.
and be
Yeah.
like, you were wrong about JD, or no, or you got it, you were right on. But yeah, I'd love to have
Yeah.
another conversation before we finish up here. Do you have anything? Maybe, especially, I think it's so important for young Americans to really understand the importance of getting involved with all of the changes that are happening in our country. Is there any message that you would like to give in general or before we
Yeah.
finish up?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things I love doing around this time of the year is it's called Operation Freedom Bags, and I've been doing this now for 7 years straight, where we help a group called Lighthouse for Life to help survivors of human trafficking, and it's one of the most awesome things every year I get to do. And why I bring that up is whatever your one issue is, it could be ending human trafficking, it could be ending poverty, it could be pro-life, could be any of these things. A life worth living is a life that's on mission.
Mm,
And if you're living your life and you're watching this, you're like, hey, I watch all these shows. I have maybe a couple of friends, but I don't really feel like I'm getting meaning. It's waiting for you. And I would say, as a Christian, like, God's created you to do it. So why would you live vicariously through other people or through a show? Like, Mary, you started this podcast. I think that's incredible. I think a lot of people like need to just do that thing they know deep
yeah.
down they need to do. And I think people have such a low quality of life
Mm,
because they're not going after the thing that they were created to do. I
yeah.
really believe that.
Yeah, I think they have a low quality of life when it comes to, what you're doing with your life. Because people, like, I mean, you think about it in the US, most people live very comfortably when it comes to materialist point of
Mhm.
view, but they don't have a good quality of life when it comes to meaning and purpose. And that, I mean, that's all of it. I've seen people living in a hut that they know what they're doing. They know what their purpose in life is, and they're pretty happy. I'm not saying
Yeah,
like I advocate
yeah.
for people living in huts, but I'm just
No, no.
saying,
Right.
if you have meaning and purpose, it's a lot of the other things kind of go on the back burner and you can move ahead and not worry so much about them. And what was it called? Bat Freedom.
Operation Freedom Bags. Yeah,
Okay.
and the organization is called Lighthouse for Life. They've been around a long time. They're actually in Lexington,
Okay.
and they've been helping survivors for goodness, probably 15 years.
Okay.
But again, that's a human issue. I mean,
Yeah.
these women who've come out of this, they need our love and support, and it's a great practical way to help.
And they prepare like kits and resources and supplies
Yeah,
for
they have
them.
these backpacks, and we fill them with like the best of the best stuff for pampering, for helping them through the Christmas season.
Oh,
Very
wonderful.
practical items.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you'll send me that, I'll put it even in the description and all
Mhm.
so we can share that. That sounds great. I appreciate you, Erik. I love talking to you. It was great to see you again.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yes, part one.
Part 1. We'll be back. Thanks, man. I hope you have a good day.
In the sunlit cafe where the chatter hums